How you gonna tell me about comic books and you don't know Lone Wolf and Cub?
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Art of Comics. I'm your host, Andres Jose Salazar. Today, we're gonna talk about maybe the best comic ever? Best series ever? I don't know. It's really up there. If you don't know this, you don't know comics, okay? Don't tell me about how you know comic books and you've not read this, okay? This is right there. Is it better than Akira? I'm not sure. I love Akira so much. It's really close, okay? This probably is better. Let me tell you, dude, about this book. First off, it's got a million versions. We're going to go through some of them today. We're going to deep dive on this, okay? This is worthy of multiple episodes. This is worthy of the things we need to do today. Created by Kazuo Koeki and Gozaki Kojima. Kojima and Koeki, the writer and artist team, these guys did amazing work. Researched heavily. This has spawned so much modern, contemporary comics, movies, TV, everything. This has had 6 movies, TV shows in Japan, Americanized stuff. They're talking about redoing it now. Someone's got the property. I don't remember. I was in Culver City a couple months ago. Someone said, "Oh yeah, we're developing." You know, people are always trying to develop this. It's because Kojima and Koeki came up with something freaking amazing. This revenge tale, father and son, on the path of demons and hell. And we're going to go into Ogami Ito and Daigoro and their story. It is classic literature. It is the pinnacle of the Ito period as far as fiction goes. I'm saying that now, and it's badass. I've got my Astro Boy jacket I got from my homeboy here, fellow subscriber and person near Macaflow. So thank you very much, Macaflow. Thank you to all the Patreon people, all you guys who are helping me, checking out my comics, enjoying the stories that I tell, and also getting to know a little bit more about this channel through the Patreon. So thank you guys for that. Hope everybody's doing safe and healthy and all that jazz. And right now, let's get it on and let's talk about Lone Wolf and Cub. Let's do it right now. Come on. Okay, everybody. Thanks for checking us out today. I am excited. This is going to be a great series. Similar to the Alec Toth series, this is a Comic Master, and we're going to go through this volume by volume, and that might only be maybe once a month because I've committed that I'm only going to spend the $20 requisite for one of these once a month because I'm going crazy. So okay, there's a million versions. This is reproduced and published here in the States under Dark Horse. This is the latest omnibus version of the story. There's 12 of these, $20 each. This is what I just read this week, so it's fresh in my mind, so I'm ready to record about it. Before these, it came out in these, and there was like 30 or 40 of these suckers. These are just 3 of these guys. These are small as crud. Nice because they're pocket size, but they're really small. This is a little bit bigger. I personally would even like the other ones, the bigger American sized. These are cool. I found this in Little Tokyo. This is a Japanese version. The paper quality is interesting. It's a little bit bigger than this guy here, as you can see. It's just got some fun like art here on the sides. And it's got these end papers, which I thought were interesting. It's got kind of a texture, almost like a bamboo type of paper in here. And I really like these like little colored little bits here. Just stuff that we don't get in the States much. So I thought this was kind of fun, so I just bought this, splurged on this guy here. But again, you know, I can't read it, so I need the Medicagene one. But yeah, so there's this one. Of course, First Comics came out with kind of standard American-sized versions, and those were like floppies. They were like, I think they were around 48, maybe 64 pages each, probably 48. But that didn't go through the whole series. That only went maybe halfway, maybe even less than halfway of the entire story. I think that company folded and that was it. So they never got any more of those. There's also this gallery edition, which is selected pages, artisted version. We're gonna go through this. I bought this like almost a year ago, and I still haven't talked to you guys about it. I've been holding off, but this is something I'm really excited about because here we get to see the original art. We get to see how it's done, what he did with brush, and then we see the crappy reproduced version here, and we say to ourselves, oh man, you lose so much great work when you reproduce it. So this is just kind of like makes us sad. But I definitely want to talk about this. But today, let's focus on the story and the actual book. So let's go ahead and do that because this is no joke. This is probably my favorite series. I've read it once. I'll give you the history. I read it once digitally. It was riveting. I had a wonderful experience. It was amazing. It was so good. But then recently I said, you know what? I need to buy these. I need to like own these guys. And so let's just get this book and let's just start, getting them. Now I don't have that much. I have like 3 bookshelves, 2.5, and they're full. And I've got long boxes and everything. So I don't have much space. But I thought if I'm going to get a freaking series, I need this series and I need this. So let's just go with it. Now, Dark Horse Americanizes this, flips it, and so we read this American Western version this way instead of like Viz and some of the more manga American produced stuff. So we're gonna Gaijinize it here for us, but that's okay. This is, a little blurb here about it being Edo period. They try to do their best to kind of keep the language correct and all the research is done. Here's the contents. These are like the chapters. What I like about this is, and by the way, it always starts with some kind of these ink wash. And I don't know if these were colorized. These could have been colored. I don't think they were though. I think they were just ink washed. And he usually does a couple 6 or 8 pages ink wash, and then it goes into like just more traditional inks. These washes are kind of fun though. Although again, looking at that artist edition, you kind of think about these are probably the mid-tones are probably all washed out. And so the reproduction quality back then probably hampers the real fidelity of the art, which is really a freaking shame. But anyway. We start off right in the story. We're going right into this idea of there's this assassin type of mercenary guy who requires 500, 500 Rio, or is it Kuko? What is it? 500 Rio, yeah. 500 Rio and the whole story. He needs to know like the whole story of why someone's getting killed, and he'll go do it. We don't know much more than that, this guy. This is Ogami. He's the main character. What I like about this is it just goes right into it. We see he's a badass. He knows he's like a great samurai guy, and he has this freaking cart, baby cart, wooden baby cart that he carries his little like 2-year-old boy in. That's all we know. We won't know until a few chapters later his story, which is kind of interesting. A lot of times nowadays you start with the origin, but here they just went right into the action. Then we kind of later learn that he was the shogun's executioner. That was a very high vaulted position in society. He was basically the shogun's right-hand man. What he said was law, and he would go and do these executions. And when people would do seppuku or harikari, he would be there to help facilitate that. And usually facilitating that means chopping off the head. So with a classic seppuku or harikari, they would used the knife and cut crossways along the belly. And when that happened, then an executioner would chop the head. And so he would be the one to do that. It would always be clean. It would always be a swift strike, and it would be kind of like official. So he was there. He was the shogun's like main guy. Turns out there was some double crossing. His wife was killed. He was framed for planning a kind of coup, or at least planning the deaths of the shogunate. And so, and it was done by this other clan family. And so because of that, he's kind of on the run. And one of the deals was that he was given the opportunity to leave Edo, to leave that area, to go in the world, be a Ronin, never come back, if he could beat this clan's, one of this clans is like elder sons. And so he does, and so he leaves. And so he was able to do that. But what's great about this story, and we'll get into the art and stuff, is that I really like that it's episodic. And what I mean by that is there are each 100 pages or whatever is like an episode. It's a single story. So it's very much guy on the road trip, kind of like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner, right? He would go, I think in the show it's called David Banner, but he would go to town, solving the problems of the town and mystery man, and then would keep going to the next town. Same deal. Or like the A-Team, you know? So it's that idea. I love those stories, by the way, where you have the lone guy, he comes into town, he kicks some ass, he solves the problem, and he keeps going. Mandalorian is a little bit like that too, from Disney. So that's what we're having. We have all these little stories of him going to town to doing an assassination or getting in some kind of involved in the local politics, helping somebody out. And of course there is this overarching story that we get into as well about his redemption and his path, the path that him and his son are now on, which is a path of kind of, they've kind of released their humanity to become dead in a way. They're not living by the Bushido code necessarily. They're kind of like on the path of hell and demons, and it's kind of a scary place to be. That's where he's at. Let's talk about the artwork too while we're going through this. This is a lot looser than something like Vagabond or Planetes or Junji Ito or all these other ones I've been reading lately. This was, originally done in the 70s and 80s. The ink work, the line work, a lot of this is brush. It's just looser. It feels fast. It shows it's kinetic. Miller, which I should mention, Miller did these covers for the Dark Horse, which are wonderful. He didn't do all of them. It went to Bill Sienkiewicz and then Matt Wagner as well, who did some. But Frank Miller cites this book specifically as a book that inspired him for a lot of the things like Ronin and some of the books that he worked on in the storytelling. Great camera work, great movement, action. Just it's loose, but it's good enough to really see, what's happening and what's kind of important for the story, which I think is critical for storytelling. So also this is like, I don't think this was pre-screen tones, but it might have been, because he's using just small lines for his textures and things. And so I don't know if he's got traditional screen tones or not. What's great though is he's always using his wits. I take that back because that looks like that's a big screen tone. Ito Ogami, who is the lone wolf, and I think one of those words either Ogami or Ito means wolf. And that's Diagoro, his boy. Lone Wolf and Cub, he's always using his wits to kind of like solve the situation, and he traps them in some kind of an honorable thing. That said, he also beats the hell out of them and kills them too. So he's not a guy who can't do that. But great, look at this stuff here. Look at something like this panel. And remember, the originals are only like 9 by 12. They did it a little bit smaller size than our 10 by 15s. But if you see, look at this. It's great in showing variety and some depth, but it's also pretty simple, Some blacks, just full-on blacks, some white spots, couple gray washes here, but not a lot of detail, not a lot of line work, rendering, but it's not needed. This is a great little trap where there's a man who is well known. He's like a Ronin mercenary bandit guy who is well known for his pistols, and he's never away from his pistols. And they set this trap where Diagoro is pretending to be drowning in the river, and the man, disrobes, takes off his guns to go save this boy, and he goes to try to save the boy, and of course Ogami's there in the water waiting for him, kills him, kills the man, and then here he is with this boy. And that was kind of interesting. He's like, so there is some trickery. There's some things like that. A lot of this also revolves around the women of the time. Prostitutes, women of ill repute, as well as, the commoners, the peasants, and some of the more noble women. And all the women, it's really great, actually, the portrayal, because there are some that are definitely diabolical and manipulating, and there's a few damsels in distress and everything in between. So they're very real. I don't feel like it's very necessarily stereotypical, but that's a great thing about this. I feel it's really accurate. Now, this could be completely inaccurate, but it feels like it's well researched, which I like a lot. So this next story, we learn about this woman who is manipulating her husband and family to get rid of this older mother, and so she's in charge right now of trying to find this killer. And it's just really great work here. And then she finds out what happened to that guy. What happened to one of my soldiers who always had his gun? Well, looks like he went missing. And then they see Diagoro with a pistol. And it's like, what the heck? How'd that kid get that? And here comes Ogami. And he's not afraid to just stab somebody. He's like, there you gotta go. Sometimes we learn about why he was sent to kill someone. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we find out later at the end of the story. We find out who paid for him to be killed, the mark, or sometimes it happens in the beginning. There is almost always some sort of a duel, which is just kind of this classic kind of feel. And Ogami usually wins. Look at this. This is great. Just great movement, gestural, and just these little lines to show this kind of value, this darkness. He could have just blotted that whole thing black, but he didn't. He kind of put those lines in there. And I also like this little noodling he does, where he kind of noodles out the sleeves. I think that's really kind of fun too. I dig that a lot. There's some symbolism here of the wolf, of course, and his cub, and the road they're on. Here's, in this story, we learn right away the man who's trying to hire him to do the killing, and why should he do this killing, and And usually Ogami will take the job, but not always. Just some great stuff. It's actually a pretty fast read. Again, we're going back to that idea where these mangas, they're so thick, but because a lot of it is action, there's not a ton of dialogue, they can usually be read pretty quickly, which has its pros and cons to it. I wouldn't mind it being a little bit slower to read, but it's good. I love this stuff. I just love the costuming. Again, not a lot of backgrounds. His backgrounds are kind of mellow. He did a lot of horses. You can tell. Of course, there's going to be a lot of horses and stuff like that. I like all this little brushwork here. It's great stuff. Look at that. I would love to see the originals of these. It might be in my book. But this is just great stuff. This is just great rendering and like modeling. I mean, it looks just really like, this is kind of super loose and expressive. But actually, if you look into this, it shows great volume. And it does have good depth in there. So I really appreciate something like this. You got the space. You have your foreground. This guy here in the middle with these characters, he's right in the middle there too, and you kind of can see that nice depth there of them circling him and then going here. I mean, you look at some Miller stuff and you would see Miller would do things like this. And then this is great too, just like really simple but evocative of this emotion. This is really nice too. I like this background a lot. Wow. Yeah, I didn't notice I'm looking there. Yeah, they're there, right there. Yeah, that's good. I like these trees. Oh yeah, this is a little boy singing a song. The boy would get into trouble every now and then, but actually he's pretty much a little mini samurai. He's very somber, and there's a part in this story where Ogami had to make the decision: am I going to go and kill myself, as would protocol be, or am I going to fight? And if I kill myself, I have to kill my boy as well. And so he lets his son choose, and he puts two items, and he puts a ball and a sword in front of him. If he chooses the ball, then he's just a normal boy, and then he'll actually kill him and himself. If he chooses the sword, then he will, in a way, his spirit's choosing the way of demons and hell and death, and so they will go on that path together, and what may come, and they just kind of live on that road of vengeance and so forth. So it's kind of an interesting concept, and we've seen that before in other things. I want to say The Last Emperor, or Buddha. There was like a Buddha something about him picking up a toy from his like previous life. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It's kind of this reincarnated concept, but of course that's a totally different like idea than what this is where he's like picking his destiny by picking the toy. Is he going to die a human, normal boy, or is he going to lose his soul and be a wandering demon like his father? Now that I think about it, I don't know if I want to just go through each one of these stories. It would be pretty laborious, and I don't want to deny you guys the joy of reading each one of these. But let me just flip through a few more pages and just show you this art. I think it's definitely worth looking at. In this story, this woman is trapped on this little, like, there's a kind of a, I guess it's a tourist spot, but it's a place which has these hot springs that people go to. Well, it's being overrun by this little gang. And she is a prostitute who's kind of stuck there with him. And it's a great story. And actually, this story is in the third movie, I think. There's 6 movies that you can get They're online as well as on Criterion. Released them. It's called. I think it's a Lone Wolf and Cub series, but there were 6 movies. Really well done. Those plots in those movies are actually stories out of this. So that's kind of nice. And actually, Koeki actually wrote those. So he wrote the stories. So that's kind of nice because you actually have like the writer on the project, which is kind of rare. So I definitely would recommend seeing the movies. The main actor's pretty good, although he's a little older and kind of portly. I think he pulls it off quite well. But that is... Oh yeah, this is... Yeah, and then so he learns a little bit more about the clan that kind of betrayed him. The Yagu. I think it's called Yagu tribe. If I see it, I can remind myself. Yeah, this is such a great story, you guys. It is really great. I would definitely say get this first one, and read it. And then if you want to keep going, go more. But even if you don't, I think it's worth getting. These are 3 brothers who are their own, in their own right, kind of these ninja assassins that wind up becoming enemies to our hero. And they're protecting the man that he's got to kill. And so to kill this guy who he's been hired to kill, he's going to have to go through these 3 guys, which are patterned after the John Carpenter movie, Big Trouble in Little China. So the Big Trouble in Little China, loved that movie. They were patterned after the 3 spirits, right? Or the 3, I think they were called the 3 spirits. It was like thunder, lightning, and wind, right? And so it's these guys with the claws and the clubs and the little whirly jibs, propellers. They were kind of patterned after this. But look at this panel. Look at that. Look at that great action. Sometimes it's a little hard to see. You have to kind of focus on it, but it's a lot of line work. There is a lot of work on here. He doesn't put a bunch of blacks. He's not like Toth, that just black stuff. He is almost like an etching. A lot of lines to kind of create that action, to keep that action going. All this stuff, That's a special skill. It's a special kind of way to do that. This is not easy to do. This would be something, recreating this wouldn't be that easy. You think it might be, it's kind of easy. No, even these clouds and getting these lines just right and that's tricky. It's kind of a tricky deal. Great folds and clothing. Yeah, I'm a big freaking fan of this stuff. I think it's great. It's fun to read. It was just fun to read too. I don't want you to think it's like homework, but this was just fun for me. So I'm a big fan. I hope you enjoyed it. This is part 1. We're going to definitely talk about the artist edition, and I kind of want to keep going on these and tell you guys more about it. But there you go for now. Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys, and have a good one. Bye.